What's up guys, it's Chris Majestic, and about 3 years ago I made a video on how to choose a home theater receiver, and the top comment on that video was, came for some quick tips, left deflated and need to rob a bank or something. Now even though this is a funny comment, I know it has a bit of truth to it, so today I want to go over how you can get your home theater started on a budget. So instead of recommending really expensive equipment, I'm going to consider that most people can be really happy and content with a pretty inexpensive setup, which can always be upgraded later. Alright, so first off, I'll start with one of the most popular home theater upgrades, which is a soundbar. Now, soundbars are kind of like the mistreated stepchild when it comes to hardcore home theater sound, but even though they have a bad rap in the home theater community, I do think they have their place, especially for people who are just getting started with building a home theater. Not only are soundbars generally an inexpensive option, but they take up very little space and they're super easy to set up. Okay, so when should you go with the soundbar? Well, I often recommend soundbars for smaller apartments, small rooms like bedrooms, or for people who just literally want the voices in their TV shows to sound better. And as far as cost, I think the sweet spot for a soundbar is around $250 to $500. Paying more than this gets you something a little louder with more speakers or extra features like Dolby Atmos, which fill the room with more sound, but at a certain point you end up with diminished returns, considering you could have probably just spent a little bit of extra money on a modular home theater setup as opposed to a $1,500 Dolby Atmos soundbar. And this brings us to our next option, which is a modular setup. A modular setup consists of a home theater receiver and separate speakers. This can range from a 2-speaker setup all the way to an insane 17-speaker Dolby Atmos setup. And one of the easiest and most inexpensive ways to get started with this if you're on a tight budget is a home theater in a box. A home theater in a box is usually a 5.1 setup that bundles an inexpensive home theater receiver with bookshelf speakers, a small center channel speaker, 2 surround speakers, and a subwoofer. Now, I don't usually recommend this to people who are looking for room-shaking sound, but if you're looking to get better sound than you get with a soundbar, this is a great way to get into it without breaking the bank. The price range is usually around $400 to $700, and even though it's not the type of setup that's gonna rival a movie theater, most people who are new to home theater and aren't too picky about sound would be perfectly happy with this type of setup. Now, you might be wondering why you'd buy this bulky setup over a soundbar, and that is a valid question, but I can assure you that just about any home theater in a box is usually going to sound much better than a soundbar at the same price. Not only are you working with larger speakers that can handle more power than the average soundbar, but you're also getting a more powerful amplifier that has more inputs and offers far more flexibility than even some high-end soundbars. And once you get into a modular setup like this, it's much easier to upgrade your system over time. So if you find that you don't like the components that come in a home theater in a box, you can get even better sound by buying a home theater receiver by itself and then buying your speakers separately. Maybe you start with a better subwoofer first, then you might move on to some larger floor speakers or even a new center channel speaker. Or you can go down the rabbit hole and buy even higher quality speakers. The possibilities are endless when you go with a modular setup, but you really don't have to spend a lot of money to be happy. So what if you want better sound than an entry-level setup, but you don't want to spend all that money? Well, this brings us to my favorite option, which is buying used home theater equipment. Now, I know some people might turn their nose up at this idea, but this is how I got started several years ago, and I found that this is the easiest way to get started regardless of your budget. Not only does buying used equipment allow you to get more bang for your buck, but it also makes it much easier to upgrade later. So for example, let's say you went on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or eBay or something like that, and you found a nice set of clip speakers for $200. Well, not only did you save by buying the speakers used, but if you decide in a year that you want to upgrade to something else, you can sell these speakers to someone else for close to what you bought them for, and you didn't lose nearly as much money as the guy who bought them new. And the beautiful thing about home theater is that amplifier and speaker technology hasn't really changed that much over the years, so as long as the speakers are in good condition, they should still sound good as long as they weren't abused. And aside from damage or abuse, the only other thing you really have to look out for with used equipment is really old home theater receivers. So you'll need to do a little research on the receiver to make sure it supports things like 4K, Dolby Atmos, or whatever features you think you might need. But buying used equipment can be really rewarding, and you can save hundreds or even thousands of dollars on your setup, and nobody will ever know or even care that it wasn't new. At the end of the day, the biggest thing to keep in mind is that you don't have to spend a ridiculous amount of money to be happy with your home theater. I know plenty of people who have a $150 soundbar and a $300 TV, and they absolutely love their setup. For most people, I suggest starting out small and build up over time, because even if you spend $20,000, I can assure you that you'll still want to upgrade it at some point in the future. But that's going to pretty much do it for this video, guys. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you did, go ahead and make sure you mash that like button for me. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell so you get notified whenever I post new videos. And I'll also be doing a channel update video pretty soon, so I can give you guys an idea of some changes that might be happening to the channel, as well as me starting a new channel. So be sure to look out for that video as well. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.